My stepsister moved in, pregnant and desperate. She accused my husband of something awful. I found her old phone. It revealed her lies. My name is Emma, and I'm 28, living in Seattle, Washington, with my husband Michael. He's 32, a high school history teacher at Roosevelt High, and honestly, the kindest guy I know. We've been married for 3 years, and our life in our cozy Capitol Hill home was pretty great. That is, until I made a decision that turned everything upside down. I let my stepsister Lauren move in with us. She's 30, 4 months pregnant, and fresh out of a messy divorce. I thought I was doing the right thing, helping family in need, but now I'm not so sure. Lauren's story was heartbreaking, or so it seemed. She told everyone her ex-husband, Ethan, 34, cheated on her with a coworker and was emotionally abusive for years. When she found out she was pregnant, it was like the final straw. She filed for divorce and was suddenly alone, struggling to make ends meet. Lauren was living in a cramped apartment in Fremont with a roommate, but she couldn't keep up with the $1,200 monthly rent. Legal fees from the divorce were eating up her savings, and she was terrified about facing pregnancy alone. She came to me one evening, tears in her eyes, begging to stay with us temporarily. Her voice cracked as she talked about not knowing how she'd afford baby supplies or doctor visits. I felt my chest tighten, picturing her alone, scared, with nowhere to turn. I sat down with Michael to discuss it. He wasn't thrilled, to put it mildly. His brow furrowed as he leaned against our kitchen counter, arms crossed. "Emma, there's something about Lauren that makes me uneasy," he said. He couldn't quite explain it, just a gut feeling. He mentioned how she'd always been overly friendly at family gatherings, lingering a bit too long when she hugged him. I brushed it off. Lauren had always been sweet to me, chatty and warm at Thanksgiving dinners or summer barbecues at my dad's place in Tacoma. I told Michael it was probably nothing, that she was just extroverted. Besides, she was family, and she was pregnant. How could we say no? I pressed him, saying we had the space a spare bedroom in our 2-story house and it wouldn't be forever. "She's got no one else right now," I said, my voice soft but firm. "We can't just turn her away." Michael sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. He's always been the type to avoid conflict, especially with me. After a long pause, he nodded. "Okay, Emma, if it's important to you, we'll make it work, but only because you're asking." I felt a wave of relief, grateful he was willing to put his discomfort aside. I hugged him tightly, promising it would only be a few months until Lauren got back on her feet. Looking back, I wish I'd listened to his instincts. I had no idea what we were about to walk into, or how Lauren's presence would threaten everything we'd built together. Now, I'm left wondering if I made a huge mistake by opening our home to her. Lauren moved into our Capitol Hill home in early spring, her suitcases barely fitting through the front door. At first, things were fine. She settled into the spare bedroom, a small space with a view of the Seattle skyline. She seemed grateful, her eyes softening whenever I brought her tea or checked in. "Emma, I don't know what I'd do without you," she'd say, her voice low, almost fragile. She kept to herself mostly, scrolling on her phone or napping, blaming pregnancy fatigue. I felt good about helping her, like I was being the sister she needed. Michael, though, was quieter than usual. He'd give her polite nods but kept his distance, working late in his office or grading papers in our bedroom. I figured he was just adjusting. About a month in, things started to shift. It was subtle at first, like a crack you don't notice until it spiders across the glass. Lauren stopped wearing her baggy sweatshirts and switched to tight tank tops and short nightgowns, even when it was chilly. I'd catch her wandering the living room in a silk slip, her baby bump just visible, when Michael was home from school. "Oh, I didn't know you were here," she'd say with a laugh, brushing her hair back. I shrugged it off, thinking she was just comfortable, but Michael's jaw tightened one evening as he pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Emma, she's doing it on purpose," he whispered, his eyes darting toward the hallway. "She only dresses like that when I'm around." I rolled my eyes, thinking he was reading too much into it. "She's pregnant, Michael. She's probably just hot all the time." Then I started noticing her hovering. If Michael was in the kitchen making coffee, Lauren suddenly needed a snack. If he was in the home office, she'd barge in, claiming she needed to print something for her doctor. One night, I came home from work and found her leaning against the counter, laughing at something Michael said. He looked uncomfortable, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Just catching up," she said brightly, but her eyes lingered on him a little too long. I brushed it off again. Lauren had always been flirty in a harmless way, or so I thought. I told myself she was just lonely, craving connection after her divorce. Michael wasn't so dismissive. One evening, after Lauren went to bed, he sat me down on the couch. His voice was low, serious. "Emma, she's crossing lines. Today, she asked if I ever think about being with someone else." My stomach dropped, but I shook my head. "She's probably just joking," I said, my voice wavering. "She's going through a lot." Michael's eyes narrowed. She touched my arm, Emma, asked if I could help her reach a shelf she could have gotten herself. I felt a flicker of doubt, but I pushed it down. Lauren was my stepsister. She wouldn't do that. I told Michael to give it time, that she'd settle down. He didn't argue, but his silence felt heavy, like he knew something I didn't. Wanting to lift her spirits, I decided to throw Lauren a baby shower. She'd been moping about missing out on pregnancy milestones because of the divorce. I spent $500 on decorations, food, and a cake, inviting family from Tacoma and her friends from Fremont. The party was a hit. Lauren glowed, opening gifts and laughing with everyone. Michael stayed in the background, helping with cleanup but avoiding her. I thought we'd turned a corner, that things would get better. But the next day, everything fell apart, and I realized I might have invited a storm into our home. The morning after Lauren's baby shower, I woke up to a nightmare. My phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up like storm clouds. Lauren had posted a long, tearful message on social media, claiming Michael had been harassing her since she moved into our Capitol Hill home. My heart stopped as I read her words. She said he'd made suggestive comments when I wasn't around, brushed against her her in the hallway, even walked in on her in the bathroom on purpose. The worst part? She claimed that during the baby shower, while I was busy with guests, Michael cornered her in our kitchen and tried to kiss her, only stopping when he heard footsteps. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the screen, my hands trembling. This couldn't be real. Michael, my Michael, would never do that. I showed him the post. His face went pale, eyes wide with shock. "Emma, this is a lie," he stammered, his voice breaking. "I swear I barely even spoke to her last night." I wanted to believe him, but my stomach churned with doubt. Lauren's post was so detailed, so convincing. She'd tagged mutual friends, and the comments were already flooding in, people calling Michael a predator, demanding justice. I felt sick, caught between my husband and my stepsister. I tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing. Had I missed something? Was I blind to who Michael really was? My family's reaction hit like a tidal wave. My stepmom, Susan, called me within an hour, her voice shrill through the phone. "Emma, how could you let this happen?" she screamed. "I always knew Michael was trouble. You're living with a monster." Her words cut deep, each one a jab at my trust in my husband. My dad texted me later, his message cold and short. "I'm disappointed in both of you. I need time." I stared at his words, my chest tightening. My own father thought I was complicit. Lauren's friends were worse. They flooded Michael's social media with hate, posting vile messages and threats to report him to Roosevelt High, where he taught. One parent had already emailed the principal, demanding Michael's suspension. I saw the fear in Michael's eyes as he read the messages, his career, his entire life hanging by a thread. I confronted Lauren that afternoon in our living room. She sat on the couch, cradling her belly, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, I was scared to tell you," she sobbed. "I knew you'd choose him over me." Her voice quivered, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt. She was pregnant, alone, and my family. But something in her eyes didn't sit right, a flicker of calculation behind the tears. I asked her to explain, to give me specifics. She doubled down, saying Michael had been watching her and making her feel unsafe. Susan backed her up, texting me later, "How dare you doubt your pregnant sister? She's been through enough with Ethan." I felt trapped, torn between protecting Michael and the pressure to believe Lauren. Michael barely left our bedroom after that. "I'm scared she'll twist anything I do," he said, his voice low, defeated. He suggested we ask Lauren to leave, but Susan's threats echoed in my mind. She'd told me kicking out a pregnant woman would prove Lauren's story, that we'd be monsters in the family's eyes. I couldn't sleep, my mind spinning with questions. Was Lauren telling the truth, or was Michael right about her all along? I didn't know what to believe anymore, but the weight of those accusations was crushing us both, and I feared our lives would never be the same. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Lauren's accusations against Michael were tearing our lives apart, but the more I replayed her story, the less it added up. The timing felt too perfect, her tears too rehearsed. Michael's haunted look, the way he avoided even glancing at Lauren, gnawed at me. I'd known him for 7 years, his kindness, his integrity. Could I have been so wrong about him? Or was Lauren hiding something? I lay awake at night in our Capitol Hill bedroom, the Seattle rain tapping against the window, my mind racing. I had to find the truth, no matter what it cost. I started by reaching out to Ethan, Lauren's ex-husband. She'd cut him off from the family after their divorce, painting him as a cheating, abusive monster. She'd even deleted his number from my phone years ago, insisting he was toxic. It took 3 days of digging through old emails and calling a mutual friend from Tacoma to track him down. When I finally got him on the phone, his voice was heavy, like he'd been carrying a burden for years. "Emma, I'm not surprised," he said, sighing deeply, "but I should have warned you." My heart pounded as he spoke. What he told me next turned everything I thought I knew upside down. Ethan said Lauren was the one who cheated, not him. For months, she'd been having an affair with his coworker, Ryan, sneaking him into their house in Renton when Ethan was at work. He'd come home early one day with a migraine and caught them together on their couch. My stomach churned as he described it, his voice steady but laced with pain. Ethan had later found emails showing they'd been meeting at Ryan's apartment for weeks. Worse, Lauren had threatened to ruin Ethan's career in corporate finance if he exposed her. She said she'd tell everyone I abused her, he said, that no one would believe me. He'd stayed silent to protect his reputation, especially after learning she was pregnant. He didn't want to stress her out for the baby's sake. Ethan emailed me a folder of evidence he'd kept as a precaution. My hands shook as I opened it on my laptop. There were screenshots of text messages between Lauren and Ryan, explicit and undeniable, planning meetups and laughing about keeping it from Ethan. Security camera footage from their Renton home showed Lauren letting Ryan in, glancing around like she was checking for witnesses. There was even an email where Lauren threatened to destroy Ethan if he told anyone about Ryan. I sat there staring at the screen, my throat tight. This wasn't just a mistake, it was calculated. I confronted Lauren the next evening in our living room. Michael was at a school meeting dealing with the fallout from her accusations. I held my phone, ready to record, and asked her point blank about Ethan's story. Her face went pale, but she tried to play it off, her voice trembling. "He's lying, Emma. You know he's a manipulator." I showed her one of the text screenshots. Her eyes widened and she froze. Then, the tears came, but this time, they felt different, desperate. She broke down, admitting she'd made up the accusations against Michael. "I liked him," she sobbed. "He was so kind, so different from Ethan. When he rejected me, I was humiliated. I wanted him to hurt like I did." My blood ran cold. She'd planned it all, waiting for the baby shower to make her post go viral. I showed the evidence to my family, Susan, my dad, even Lauren's friends. Susan scoffed, calling it fake, accusing me of siding with that abuser Ethan. My dad didn't respond, his silence cutting deeper than any words. Lauren was still in our house, and every day felt like walking on glass. I didn't know how to make them see the truth, but I knew I couldn't stop digging. Something told me there was more to Lauren's story, and I was determined to find it before she destroyed us completely. The weight of Lauren's confession hung heavy in our Capitol Hill home, but I still felt trapped. She was still living with us, her presence like a shadow over every room. My family's refusal to believe Ethan's evidence gnawed at me, especially Susan's accusations that I'd fabricated it all. I couldn't let it go. I needed more proof, something undeniable, to show everyone who Lauren really was. Then, last weekend, I stumbled onto something that made my stomach twist. While helping Lauren move boxes in her room to make space for baby furniture Susan had bought her, I found an old iPhone tucked inside a shoebox. It was the one she'd claimed to lose during her separation from Ethan. My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't snoop, but after everything, I had to know the truth. The phone still had power, and Lauren hadn't changed her password. It was still her birth year. I sat on the floor, the Seattle rain drumming outside, and opened her messages. What I found made me feel sick. There were dozens of inappropriate conversations with married men in our social circle, spanning 3 years. She texted our neighbor's husband, Chris, flirty messages that turned explicit, suggesting meetups at his Belltown apartment. She'd done the same with my cousin Brian's husband, Mark, and even my friend Lisa's ex-husband, Tom. The pattern was chilling. She'd start with friendly texts, then push boundaries, sending suggestive photos and proposing secret meetings. My hands shook as I scrolled, each message a betrayal. The worst discovery was a thread with her former roommate's husband, Daniel. This was from when Lauren lived with her friend Amy in Fremont, right after leaving Ethan. The messages showed Lauren flirting relentlessly, asking Daniel to keep her company while Amy was at work. When he rejected her, she turned vicious, texting Amy that Daniel was making her uncomfortable, claiming he'd been too touchy. The conversation ended abruptly when Lauren moved out, claiming Amy and Daniel were hostile. I recognized the tactic. It was exactly what she'd done to Michael. My chest tightened, anger mixing with dread. How many lives had she tried to ruin? I kept digging. There were messages where Lauren bragged to a friend about her ability to manipulate people. "It's so easy to play the victim," she wrote, laughing about how everyone believed her sob stories. My blood ran cold. She'd planned every move, knowing exactly how to twist the truth. I found texts with Susan from just before Lauren moved in with us. They discussed how she could save money by staying with us, with Susan suggesting she lean into the pregnancy angle to gain sympathy. One message made my jaw drop. Susan wrote, "Michael's too nice for his own good. Easy to guilt trip." They'd targeted him from the start, knowing his kindness made him vulnerable. I contacted Lisa, whose marriage to Tom had ended 2 years ago. I hadn't spoken to her much since, but I needed answers. Over coffee in a quiet Fremont cafe, she broke down, her voice trembling. "Lauren destroyed us," she said. When Lauren stayed with them during a fight with Ethan, she'd tried to kiss Tom, then accused him of harassment when Lisa caught her. Their marriage crumbled under the mistrust. I showed her the messages from Lauren's phone. Her eyes widened, tears falling. "I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have proof," she whispered. I felt a pang of guilt for not seeing Lauren's true colors sooner. The phone also had messages proving Lauren's affair with Ryan wasn't a one-off. They'd planned it for months, even creating a fake email to send anonymous tips to Ethan's workplace, accusing him of misconduct. It was all part of her scheme to discredit him before he could expose her. I took photos of everything, my hands shaking with rage. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. Lauren had hurt so many people, and I had the evidence to prove it. I showed it all to Michael that night. His face was a mix of relief and horror. "We've got her," he said, his voice low. "But what now?" I wasn't sure. Confronting her again felt risky, but keeping her in our house was unbearable. I needed to end this, but I had to be careful, or she'd twist it against us again. I'd had enough. The evidence from Lauren's phone burned in my mind, and I couldn't let her lies destroy us any longer. My dad invited us to a family dinner in Tacoma to mediate, though he still wasn't speaking to Michael directly. I spent days preparing, printing out every damning text, email, and screenshot from Lauren's phone, plus statements from Lisa, Amy, and Ethan. I organized it all in a folder, my hands steady but my heart pounding. This was it. I was done letting Lauren play the victim. We drove to my dad's house, the Seattle skyline fading behind us, and I braced for what was coming. Lauren was already there, sitting with Susan, her baby bump on display as she complained about our harassment. Susan hovered, glaring at Michael like he was a criminal. The air was thick with tension, my dad's face tight as he avoided my eyes. I waited until dinner ended, when Lauren started whining about how we'd pressured her to lie. I stood up, my voice calm but firm, and placed the folder on the table. "Enough," I said. I played the recording of Lauren admitting she'd lied about Michael. Her voice filled the room, confessing she'd made it all up because he rejected her. Everyone froze. I spread out the evidence, texts with married men, her plans with Ryan, her bragging about manipulating people. I showed Susan's messages, urging Lauren to exploit her pregnancy. Lisa, who I'd invited, stood and shared how Lauren had wrecked her marriage, her voice breaking. The room was silent except for Lauren's sobs. She tried to deny it, claiming I'd faked everything, but I held up her old phone. Her face crumpled as she lunged for it, only making herself look guiltier. Finally, she broke, admitting everything: her lies about Michael, her affair with Ryan, her accusations against Ethan. "I just wanted attention," she cried. "You and Michael were so perfect. It made me jealous." My dad looked like he'd been punched. He stared at Lauren, then at me, his eyes wet. Susan tried to defend her, blaming me for not supporting Lauren enough, but my dad cut her off. "Stop," he said, his voice sharp. "You've enabled this for years." He apologized to Michael, his voice heavy with regret, admitting he should have questioned Lauren's story. Several relatives walked out, disgusted. Susan stormed after Lauren, who left in tears. The truth was out, but the damage lingered. Susan later texted, confronted, demanding I apologize for humiliating Lauren, but most of the family cut ties with her and Lauren. My dad vowed to support us, his trust in Susan shaken. Lauren moved in with Susan the next week. She didn't fight it, knowing she'd lost. Michael and I felt a weight lift, but the scars remained. I'd trusted Lauren, and she'd nearly ruined us. I wondered if I could have handled it differently, but exposing her felt like the only way to save Michael's life. Michael's name was cleared, and his job at Roosevelt High is secure. The school board dismissed the accusations after Lisa, Amy, and others vouched for his character, exposing Lauren's lies. Some parents even sent apology letters, which Michael read with a quiet relief. We're moving to a new house in Bellevue, closer to his school and my company's office, not because we had to, but for a fresh start. The drama left us drained, and our Capitol Hill home feels tainted now. I haven't spoken to Lauren or Susan since that night in Tacoma, and I don't plan to. Their betrayal cut too deep, especially Lauren's calculated malice. She didn't just lie, she tried to destroy us out of jealousy. Looking back, I feel guilty for dismissing Michael's instincts about Lauren. He saw through her from the start, but I was too focused on being a good sister. That blindness nearly cost us everything. My dad's trying to make amends, calling to check in, but trust will take time to rebuild. Lauren's still with Susan, posting vague social media rants about forgiveness, while Susan defends her. Most of the family's done with them, and some, like Lisa, are exploring legal action. I'm still torn. Was I wrong to expose Lauren so publicly? Could I have handled it privately to avoid the fallout? I don't know. All I know is I had to protect Michael, and I'd do it again. So, Aita for airing her lies in front of everyone? Or was it the only way to stop her?